Hello, everybody. This is Seth Juarez, and we're going to be talking about reporting. I'm really excited because I've decided to take a little bit more balanced approach to doing webinars. And what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the features that really we just don't get to talk about. You know what I'm saying? And so today we're going to talk about parameters and how to use them. I'm going to go through a myriad of scenarios on how you can use parameters. And as always, I will take your questions during. Because of my ADD-ness, I need to take the questions as they come in, and when I see a spot where they fit, I will definitely answer them. So please, any questions that you might have, I'm happy to answer. Now, another little secret is that my slide, this is my only slide. This one right, hopefully you'll see it soon. Wow, it's not updating. Can you? Oh, there you go. There it is. That is my slide that says I don't have any slides. My last slide happens to be this one right here. So I will go back and let's make something. And I'm not going to pull any punches here. Today we're going to start with Visual Studio freshly opened. Let me move it over to my other screen here. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about parameters. I have a series of things that I'm going to go through with parameters. Whether I should have set some up for a poll where you could vote whether you want me to focus more on ASP.NET or WinForms. Obviously, WPF would be about the same. The approach to actually visualizing and presenting this is going to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take a little balanced approach and do both ASP.NET and WinForms while focusing on the reporting stuff. So with that, let's get started. Let me create a new project. And what I'm going to do is I am going to create a other project type here. And the other project type is going to be a Visual Studio solution. I'm going to make it a blank solution. I'm going to call it sample params as the blank solution. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to add some projects. So I'm going to go through in a little bit and just build a report from scratch. So let's go ahead and add a new project. And that project is going to be a class library, and we're going to call it reports. And incidentally, if you have a preference between WinForms and or ASP.NET, just put it in the question box or something, or send us a chat or whatever. And I'm happy to focus on whichever one. Obviously, the one that gets the most requests, I'm going to focus on more because we only have about 60 minutes, and I want to make sure that we get a good feel for parameters and how powerful they are. Okay. So the next thing I am going to do is I am going to hit delete on this class thing. Let's hit OK. Oh, Carl's saying something. He says in the last webinar on MVVM, you showed creating a viewer with 3 controls using one as a parameter panel. Will you be showing how you can use that to use parameters with stored procedures? Well, I'm going to do something similar to that, Carl. I'm getting a mix now. I like said WinForms and ASP.NET. There's a couple of people saying WPF, but WinForms looks like it's getting the championship nod. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is, if there is time, I'm going to see if I can't get a WPF one up real quick too, because the actual implementation doesn't change too much. So that's the pretty cool thing. All right, so let's go ahead and add a data source. Now, in this particular case, I am just going to add an access database. So don't necessarily think ill of me. Okay, that's all I'm going to ask. So we're going to go to the demos, and in the components a folder under data we have Northwind. So nwind.mdb, and right away it's going to start asking us about the data set. I'm going to say yes. I am going to choose just a couple of tables. We're going to do let's do categories and products just to get a really good master detail, and I'm going to name this Northwind. Okay, and hit finish. All right, so it's going to go ahead and add everything that we need in order to do this project, and our Northwind database is complete. Now, a couple of things. I'm going to do a lot more. I want to do a lot more on varying the stuff we do on the data side. So we're going to try to have some more webinars on, for example, using EF4, using XPO, that kind of stuff on the data side. But this particular webinar is going to focus on the actual layout and that sort of thing. So again, as I always say, when we think about reports, let me escape this and change it to red. When we think about reports, the most important thing is data, 2, layout, and then 3, presentation. This right here having to do primarily with where we get our bits from. This having to do primarily with how we set up the report, and this primarily dealing with how we show the report. We are going to be heavy in this area right here, and then we're going to be secondarily heavy on this area right here. Hence, if I use access, it's a little bit faster to just go through that part a little bit faster. Okay, so let me right-click and add a new item. And that item is going to be a report. So let's go to the XtraReport class and let's create the product report. And it's going to add all the juicy goodness involved with reporting. And it's going to load up the design surface for the report that we all know and love. Amanda she has a poster of this in her room, this design surface, because what it tells her is I have limitless possibilities. I think we should make a t-shirt with this. I think we're going to make a t-shirt with this. That would be cool. All right, so let me go ahead and go to the data source. And as you know, we're going to go ahead and use Northwind. Now, what I did before in adding it, I could have just done right here. Right? I could have just done it right there as well, but I'm going to go ahead and use the Northwind project, and it's going to automatically say, hey, using categories and categories table adapter, which we are hunky-dory with. Okay, so let's build a really quick report. Right. All right, so let's go to categories. We're going to start off on the categories. We're going to have a category name, and then we're going to go to the description. We have an icon or a picture, 25. And let me do this because I want to make this picture the right size. So let's go to HTML view real quick. It's going to load it up here, and let's take a look at the properties of this picture here. Looks like it's 175 by 110. So let's go back to the designer. Let's go to the picture box, and let's go to the size, and we're going to say 175 by 110. So 175 by 110. There you go. The category name we're going to put here. Let's make it just a smidge bigger, and let's put it all the way over here. And the description we're going to leave right here. Now we're going to go really fast through this part just because I want you to see how easy it is to do this kind of thing. I'm going to go to the report, and I'm going to rely on the whole notion that everything is let me go to blue, that everything is an XR control, including the report. And because of that, there is this nice little inheritance thing where any sub XR control inherits the styles of the parent XR control unless you otherwise tell it not to, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a global font style on the report and let it propagate down. Let me show you that. So let me go here to this report. I'm going to go down to the font here, and I'm going to go into Verdana and say OK. The next thing I'm going to do is that this guy needs to look a little bit better. So we're going to go to the styles, and we're going to create a new style. Notice that you can do it here, or you can go over here to this area right here and click on this little ellipses. So let's go and just do it on the actual control here. So let's go to styles. Let's do new, and let's call it the header style, or let's call it the subheading. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder. So we'll do that. 16. Notice that as we go, if we use table adapters and that sort of thing, you get this nice little feeling of being able to look at it while you're changing it. So we'll make this up a little bit bigger. Got this going here. Let's go to preview. Looks like we're looking good. We need to have a nice little header, so let's do that. Let's go to insert band, and we'll do a report header. In there, we're going to create a label. So let me go down here. Here's our report control. So let's do an XR label, and let's make it a little bit bigger and have a really interesting background. So let's move this over here. Let's move this up. And let's go to this particular thing and add a style real quick. So we're going to say new. I thought today I would actually make the report. Usually I just say, hey, I'm going to cheat, but today I'm not. So we're going to say report header. And we're going to change the back color to, oh, sorry, style report header. I should have named it something a little bit more interesting, but that's okay. So we'll set the back color to, I don't know, let's set it to this. Let's set the font to something a little bit larger, like 18, for example. And let's make sure that the text alignment is set to the middle. And the fore color, let's see, let's set it to something a little bit more interesting, like this. That's ugly, but that's okay. We'll leave it at that. And then we're going to call this the product report. Boom. And there it is. Okay, product report. So far we're looking really good. So far, we got things going. The next thing we need to do is we need to add obviously the detail report for products. And in there, what we're going to do is we're going to add a thing for the product name, the let's see, quantities per unit, and the unit price. This one's big enough. This one needs to be a little bit bigger, and this guy needs to go over here like so. Well, let's take a gander and see how it's looking. Looking pretty good. Let's move this up. This guy is a dollar amount, so we'll say 0, 0:C, or you could alternatively click the little ellipses and just check currency. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set some styles. Let me first take this label over here, and let's put it just right there. And what this is going to do is it's going to have no text in there, but it's going to participate in the row formatting. So now I'm going to grab these guys. I'm going to go down to the style. And what I am going to do is I am going to have an odd and an even style. So we're going to say the even style is going to be this, even row. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the back, we'll leave the back color alone. We'll set the font to something that we want, like Verdana. We'll leave it there. Then we're going to make sure the text alignment is set all the way to the middle left. Okay? Good. So we've got that in there. Now we're going to add an odd style. So we're going to say new, and we're going to call it the odd style. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the back color to something really light like this. And I am going to change the font to what we had before. We'll leave it like that and make sure that the text alignment is set to the middle left. This guy, though, needs to be set to the middle right because it's a dollar value, and I think we're good to go here. Let me move this picture here, and let me move this here, and I think we have a pretty stunning report. I mean, seriously. Well, let's add a page break after this so that it looks good. Before, after, and now we have this report thing right here. Whew. Well, we went through and made a report from scratch. It's not super cool, but hey, you know what? It does what we want. So now that we have that in there, let's go ahead and do some presentation of it, okay? So let's go to the Solution Explorer here. Let's add a, let's see, how many votes do we have for WinForm? We had more WinForms than others, and one ASP.NET. So let me do WinForms, and then we'll see if I can't ad hoc do some other ones, okay? So let's add a new project. Let's add a WinForms application, and let's call it the Win Viewer. There you go. And in the Win Viewer, I'm going to let my ADD shine out by renaming this to main.cs. And then what I'm going to do is, in order to have all the references that we want, I am going to pretend that I'm adding an extra report, because this is indeed the lazy way to get all the references that you need. There it goes. By the way, as we're going, again, I'm happy to take questions. I don't need this anymore. I just used it for the references. So let me hit yes. Then what I'm going to do here is I am going to drag a text box, a button, and drag that puppy on, and then my ADD will come forth even more, because I'm going to go in here and show you, if you're using WinForms, the best thing to do is to use the extra form as the parent. So let me control dot that. Let me do that. And now you'll see that we have this nice little guy in here, and you have this thing under components. Here, I'll show you this just real quick. Because some people think we don't give a lot of winforms love. I think winforms is awesome, to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and add a default look and feel on there. And notice that what you can do here is you can go ahead and change the skin name. We're going to change it to black, and then we have this awesome black thing. All right, so let's hit the simple button here. What we want to do is we want to just show the report. So the first thing we need to do on the references is add a reference to, that's right, the reports itself. And what we can do now is we can handle the click event by saying product report report equals new product report. And what we're going to do is we're going to say report.show preview dialog, and we are ready to go. Except for I hit run, and it's going to get mad because you cannot run that's right, you cannot run an output class library. So let me go ahead and change the thing to the Win viewer, and let's hit as a startup project, and there we go. All right, when I hit the button, the report is all happy and lovely and ready to go. All right, so any questions so far? This was supposed to be the real fast part. It took a little bit more time, but I think we've got a good feel for the report and what's going on. Okay, now it's time to talk about what we're here to talk about, and that's the actual parameter. Well, actually, someone said ASP.NET, and I'd be remiss if I did not do this real quick. Here's the web viewer, and this is not going to take long at all. Again, to add the references that we want, let's hit add a new item, and let's go to reporting, and what this will do is this will create all of the things that we need for it. Actually, you don't need to in this case, but I always do just in case, so let me hit delete on this, hit OK. Let's go to the default.aspx. Let's go to design mode. And here we're going to see our excellent reporting tools that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the report toolbar, put it in there, let it add its goodness. Then I'm going to go ahead, and once that's done, I am going to add, by the way, it adds the stuff it needs to the web config. So that's what's going on right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add, let's go to reporting, the report viewer. Okay, now we're going to go into the source, and we're going to clean this up a little bit. And the way to clean it up is to take this out. We don't need that. We don't need that. We can scrunch this up. Looks like this is not right. This is okay. So we'll go like this. This P, I think, it's good. So everything looks like it's in there. Report viewer, report toolbar. So the easiest way to actually add these things is, again, to add a reference to the particular reports here. Let's hit close. The next thing we need to do is let's do a rebuild real quick. That way it knows about the assembly. Then we're going to go ahead and choose the report by clicking this guy. And while it thinks, it will see this. Then this guy is going to say, what report viewer do you want to use? And we'll say report viewer 1. And you know what? The last thing that I almost always forget is that the data needs to be added here. So we're going to say existing item. And we're just going to go ahead and drop in the Northwind database here. There you go. So let's go ahead and set this as a startup project. Let's set this as the startup page, and let's run it. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing this is because the parameters are handled differently through the web, and so I want to make sure that we have a minute to do that as well. So here is the home page, here is the report, and everything is happy again. Do you see that? That only took 5 minutes, by the way. I just want everyone to know that. So I'll click that shut and go over to the stop. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the Win viewer and we're going to start to play with parameters. Okay, any questions so far? I went really fast because that was supposed to be the not necessarily uninteresting part, but it's not the focus of this particular webinar. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any questions that I can see. Nope. So let's go ahead and go deal with parameters. So the interesting thing with parameters is that you can access them and use them here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a parameter, and that parameter is going to be the category. So let's say category name. And we're going to go ahead and leave it as a string. We'll set the description here. And we'll leave everything as standard. We're going to run the WinForms project, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. When I hit the simple button, you're going to see here that the parameters panel loads up, and the text that's put here is the description. So the description that I filled out, you remember over here, the main idea is to actually make it a little bit easier to show. So let me just hit the character C and show you that really nothing has changed. Okay, so that's what the parameters panel does. Now let's talk about two things that are very important. The first thing has to do with this notion of parameter visibility, and we get a lot of support questions on this, and so I want to make sure that this is understood, because there are actually two different parameters that deal with reporting, two reporting properties that deal with report parameters. One attaches to the parameter itself, and the other attaches to the report. Okay, so the visibility dictates whether or not we actually show the parameter when we load the report. So let me hit the button and show you that now what's going to happen is the report's just going to load, right? Because there's nothing that it's going to show. First of all, the parameter is not required, and that's the other thing. So that's the first thing about visibility, that if I set it to false, the window will not show. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to restrict the access to the data based upon the parameter. So the first way we're going to do it is we're going to do it via the filter string. Now I will tell you the filter string brings the data down first and then does the filtering post query. So that's an important thing to remember. So let's go to the filter string editor. Let's go to category name. We're going to say begins with, and in here what we can do is we can change what we're comparing to. So I'm going to change it not to another field, but to the actual parameter. So I'm going to hit OK. Hit save. Now the parameter is visible. So when we hit it, notice the behavior is going to be a little bit different. So I hit this guy right here. I hit C for category, so everything that starts with a C is going to be loaded up. Now let me go over here and let's see what happens when we change the visibility to false. So I'm going to load up this guy right here. It's going to say just load up everything. And the reason why is because it's not really doing anything with the parameter. So let's go over here and let's look at this report, this thing right here that says request parameters. Now, notice again that there is this Boolean, and this Boolean specifies whether report document creation should start before all the report parameters are submitted. So the thing here is true, so let's set it to false and see what happens. Notice that the report is loaded up all hunky-dory and happily as before. So the idea is that this particular thing, the request parameter, says before the report is loaded, should we request the parameters? And then the visibility says whether or not we show the parameter. Does that make sense? So here, let me set this parameter to visible, and let me go ahead and set the report request parameters to false, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit run, and let's see the behavior in action. So I'll hit the button. Right, notice that the report has loaded first because the parameters have not been requested. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit this and hit submit, and notice that it changes it. So notice that what's happened here is that the actual request parameters said, hey, report, you just go ahead and load however you can before the parameter's been submitted, and then we can ask for the parameter afterwards. And so those are two different things. And then obviously we have the visibility of the parameter, whether it shows up or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how this works in ASP.NET, right? Because notice in WinForms, there's this magic built-in thing that doesn't necessarily exist in the web viewer. So let's go to the default.aspx, and let's go ahead and do some real quick, let's do some divs. So we're going to say ID equals report, very good. And then in here, we're going to have the left side and the right side. So div ID equals left. Notice that the parameters are going to go in here. Then over here, we're going to have the reports, or div ID equals right. Obviously, you should name these things more intelligent things. I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole thing right here, Control X, and I'm going to put it on the right, so that we have this right-hand side that has the report. So I think this is still running. Make sure it's all stopped. Okay, good. So there it is, the report on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is just a regular report. On the left-hand side, we're going to add the parameters, but what we need to do is we need to do a little CSS. So we're going to say style type equals text CSS. And what we're going to do is on the left-hand side, we're going to say that the floating is going to be to the left. So let's float left, and the width, let's just make it a healthy 200px. And let's do a padding of 10 all the way around. And on the right-hand side, what we're going to do is we're going to do a margin right in order to move it over. And we're going to set that to 220 for padding on both ends. The padding is going to be here, again, 10px. Notice that 220 is because there's padding on the left and the right side of the left div. And I think that works. So let's take a look at the design. Notice that it doesn't fit here, and so I think I need to make it a little bit smaller. So let's make the left-hand side. Instead, let's do 160px. And the only reason it doesn't fit is because it's, it's not, this window is not wide enough. So, all right, so we have the right contents. There's the items here. We have this here. We have the report viewer is in there also to the right. So I think that about does it. So let's go to the design view and let's drop in the report parameters panel. So I'm just going to drop it right there, and then I'm going to move it into this thing right here. And now all of a sudden you're starting to see that it indeed starting to look normal-ish. So there it is. Let's go ahead and set as the startup page, and let's go ahead and set as the startup project, and let's run it and show you the parameters are indeed in there. Now for WPF and Silverlight, I'm going to show you a little bit how to access the parameters as they go. So notice that I set the visibility to false. So let me go back to the report itself. Let me hit stop. Let's go to the product report, and let's make sure that all of the parameter stuff is set as we would like it. So the visibility is to true, but the request parameters is set to false. So let's set that to true. And let's rebuild. And let's run it. Okay, as we're running, any questions, Amanda, as they're coming through?
Hey, Seth. So let's see. Is there a way to use the parameter to filter the data before loading from the database?
Yes. In fact, it's almost as if you're reading my mind. I'm going to be doing that next. I don't know why the parameter isn't showing up here. That's the odd thing. Let me go ahead and look over here, make sure that the parameters panel is indeed there. Let's see here. So let me look at the source. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm an idiot. Let me click here. I forgot to tell it to use report viewer 1. Okay, now it should work. So let's hit that, and let's go ahead and stop and rebuild. Okay. Reshow. That's why it wasn't showing up. I just did not tell it what report viewer to use. So let's go ahead and hit the C, submit. There it is. You notice that it's loading up. And happily, that stuff right there. Why is this not working all the way? It looks like my CSS abilities have gotten the best of me. So we have a margin to the, we wanted a margin left, not right. That's embarrassing. Oh, coolly dokily. Now let's go ahead and load this, Control F5, and you'll see that everything is happy again. All right. So then when we change the categories here, notice that it loads up everything that we want, C, and then obviously B, and you can do all that stuff there. So notice that in ASP.NET, at least we have the possibility to just drag that puppy on. Okay, now the next question is, Seth, well, now we want to use this as a, we don't want to filter it on the actual, you know, we don't want to filter it after we get the data, because what if we have 1 million records? Great question. I didn't make that question, but it's one that's often asked. So I'm going to go over here, and let's go ahead and remember that we have a filtration on the actual categories, right? So what we're going to do on the table adapter is we're going to add a new query. And in that query, what we're going to do is we're going to select the rows, but we're going to say where category. Well, you know, let's just do the query builder instead, because that's an easier thing to use. So we'll have the query builder, and we'll say category name equals question mark. Now I'm going to hit execute query, and it's going to say, well, what's the question? Let's do C. Notice that it's going to return. Oh, you notice it says equals. We're going to say like that plus this, because we want to get starts with, right? So now let's execute the query again. Let's put the C and hit OK. And now notice that we have what we want. So let's hit OK. Let's hit next. Get data by name. And we're going to say get data by name here as well. So fill by name and get data by name. And then we'll hit next and we'll hit finish. So now we have this extra guide, extra query that we can use to put stuff in. Now, the thing about it is that the method that I'm going to show you is going to allow you to catch information as it comes through, and so you can actually in the report do whatever you like. My suggestion is this: I always like these things to be married a certain way, so that's not the way I wanted to do it. So let's do shift. No. Okay, so here's the report. So we'll put a big R in there. Right, and let's do a data, and so here is the data, and let's put a big D in there. I wanted it to be not yellow, but I guess that works. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to separate the notion of getting data from the notion of displaying data. So for example, my suggestion is to have an intermediary that gets data and gives it to the report, but that it conforms to the schema. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you a direct access from the report to the data. Now, that's not necessarily the wrong thing to do, but you can definitely do that as well. All right, so as we're going, I can see there's a couple of questions coming through here. Is there a way to customize these fields? Yes, I'm not going to get into that today, but what I'll do is I'll show you how to actually create custom drop-downs for custom editor types for the drop-down box in WinForms. Okay, in ASP.NET, it's really up to you how you want to actually show how to pick stuff, and you'll see that. You'll see that here. Okay, so there's a Northwind data set, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead over here, and we're going to say do not use any table adapter, and we're going to kill the filter string. Okay. So now what we're going to do is on the product report itself, I'm going to go ahead and do the before print event. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if parameters, because that's a property. And again, just like ASP.NET kind of stuff, category name does not equal null. What we're going to do is we're going to do the following. We're going to say category table adapter, because notice that we have one because we built one. We're going to say fill by name, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the parameters and we're going to take the category name and we're going to take the value. So let me go ahead and put this on the next row and let me make this a string. And then what we're going to do is this fill by name is going to, let me show you what it requires. This fill by name asks for a data table and a category name. So it looks like I got them backwards, right? So now we need to fill the data table. And the one that we've been working with is this Northwind1 dot categories. That's the data table. There you go. Why is it doing that? And, okay. There we go. I think that works. For some reason, it's not liking, oh, too many parentheses. There you go. So what I'm saying is, look, before you print Mr. Report, I want you to check, by the way, thanks, Andrew is in the back end sending you some really cool things. There's also a blog post that I did on how to do some custom editors, and I'll show you that one as well. So notice that what we're saying is, hey, product report, before you print, I want you to filter everything, but we're filtering it by the table adapter. So let's go back to the WinForms viewer. So let me go to the solution. Let's go back to the WinForms viewer. Let me set it as a startup project, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the report and verify that our parameters are all set properly. Visible set to true, and the report request parameters should be set to true because we need them. So let's hit run. All right, let's hit the simple button. Let's hit C. And again, everything looks the same. Nothing's changed, right? But what's happened now is instead we are hitting directly the database with this parameter. So the question can be the following. Well, Seth, what if it's EF4? Or what if it's this? Or what if it's that? Notice that the way that I've implemented it really is agnostic to whatever it is. All you need to do is set the data source. The data source is already set to this particular data set, but what I'm doing is I'm filtering out the categories table and forcing it to handle it through me. And the way that I did that is, notice that the report's going to say, hey, if you give me an adapter, I'm just going to use it. But we don't want to do that, okay? So there is that. Okay, Amanda, any questions as I move on to the next stuff?
Yeah, is it possible to handle this control in web applications for mobile devices?
That's a good question. Now, as far as mobile devices, I'm not sure. I guess the question is you have to render it somehow, but that I'm not sure what to tell you. But let me show you how I would do actually. Let me see if I can answer the question by going through and saying, well, let's go to the web viewer, and let's see what happens when we just run it. Yeah, Dan, that's a question here. Dan's question is, could you add a text box to the web form and accept the parameter from there on a button? But the answer is yes. So let's see. Let's hit the C here and let's see what happens. Notice that the report is still the report's happening through here, right? But what Dan wants me to do is he wants me to take this off and handle it through a text box, and that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so great question, Dan. So to answer Juan Pablo's question, depends. So our ASP.NET controls should render okay on an actual mobile thing, But what I would do is I would create your own sort of look and feel to it, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do next. So let's go to the web viewer, and let's go to the default.aspx. Let's go to the design view, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a text box and a button, right? So the first thing is we're going to go to the common controls. Let's go to the ASPX text box control. Let's add it here. Very good. And let's add a button. So we're going to say ASPX button. Okay. So let's go to design. And it looks like everything is in there. So let's go to this and let's make it a little bit shorter if we can. Very good. And what we're going to do is we're going to handle this click button. Okay. So now notice that we have to handle our own getting report. So we're going to say protected extra report get report. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to handle everything about getting the report here. So we're going to say product report equals new product report, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say report.parameters, and this is what was it, category name? Category name dot value equals, and that value is going to be the ASPX text box 1 text. Notice that when it starts, this text is going to be empty, and so the light query is going to return all of them. Right? Then what we're going to say is report.parameters category name dot visible equals false, right? Because we don't want to show it. We've already given it a value, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say return report. Okay. Now the interesting part. We need to go back to the default.asp page, and what we need to do is we need to set the report to none. Right? Because the report we're going to be giving, we're going to say, hey, report viewer, we'll take care of you. So we'll go now to default.aspx.cs, and what we're going to do is we're going to say report viewer1.report equals get report. And notice that on the button, we're going to do the same. And the reason why is that this particular report has postback things that happen. And so the report's only going to change when we load it or when we click the button. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to delete this. And let's run it. Okay, so notice it loads up everything first because, again, it's empty. And uh-oh, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. I think I might have not put enough code in there. So let's hit stop here. And I think I forgot, the one thing I forgot was create document. I think that's what I forgot. And if not, then I have some code that I did yesterday that I'll have to look at because, you know, I have to cheat sometimes. Report.create document, F5. Stephen asked, what about multiple parameters? Yeah, literally, you just add more. And so what I'm showing you is really just like a 1 to n kind of. You can do the same thing. So let's hit C here. And there is the condiments. So imagine, Stephen, that we have multiple parameters, and we create multiple selections over here to the left. And again, this idea is the same in WPF and Silverlight, except that we're accessing the report model. The preview model, I think, is what it's called in Silverlight, and it's called the report preview model inside of WPF. And so what we do is what we need to do is simply, oh, good. Andrew's checked our ASP.NET Extra Report demos on our website with his Android-based phone, and they seem to be working. That's excellent. So you would just do this, right, but try to make it fit. So anyways, what I was saying is you just access the model, and you can do this via MVVM. For example, the parameters change and you get the notify property change event, and you set the parameters in the model and recreate the document. So it's, again, the same principles that we have for ASP.NET, the same for Silverlight, the same for WPF. So hopefully this isn't, because I'm running out of time, hopefully this isn't too much of a, like, holy cow, I wish you would have shown that. It's really the same concept over again, but a little bit different in that you're accessing the report model instead of the report itself. So hopefully that helps. So I've done the how to do it within ASP.NET. Notice that these concepts again can be used through WinForms if you so desire. Now let's talk a little bit in the 13 minutes that we have. Let's talk about what the parameters can participate in within the report. So let's go to the report itself. Let's close all other documents. And let's start playing with the parameters and what they can do. So we're going to add a new parameter. No, let's not do that quite yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a calculated field. Oh, Dan's question. You don't have to code this, but could I put the report in a callback panel so there wouldn't be the need for the blipping postback with ASP.NET? Great question, Dan. Absolutely. You can do whatever you like. The question is, make sure that you pass the parameter values back. Is blipping a bad word wherever you're from, Dan? Because I think I might have just sworn in something. Oh, good, Dan. Thank goodness. Yes, you can. If you'd like, send me an email. We can set up a demo and see if we can't get that to work. Okay, so in the categories, we're going to add a calculated field. And the calculated field is going to be called our super field. And our super field is going to have an expression. And the expression, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want to show what the parameter can participate in. So we're going to say your query value, and we're going to put inside of this other parentheses the parameter for category name. And so I'm going to just leave it like that. And I am going to make the description a little bit smaller, like so. Move this down. And I'm going to put the super field right up here. Notice now that the parameter is participating in no less than a binding. So let's hit run. I don't even remember what's running. It's either WinForms. Is it web? Oh, it's the web one. Notice that it doesn't matter because this is all handled through the report. So let's go ahead and hit a C. Notice that our query value is empty on the first call, but on the second, our query value is C. Let's do condiments. Hit the button, and you can see that, again, it participates in the actual binding. And I think that's kind of cool, too. Maybe. Oh, a question from Adrian. I suspect that using the reports with the ASP.NET MVC controls is similar to classic ASP.NET. Absolutely. The only exception is that we do not have a special parameters control. But you can do, but what I've done, notice in this example, is I've actually eliminated that and done it myself. And so the same kind of concept. When you do the post back, or when you send the report back to be regenerated on the controller, you send the parameters. When the report is created, you just set the parameters like before. Great question. Okay, so now we've actually involved the parameter inside of the a binding. Now let's look at, so we did a binding and we did a calculated field. So I was supposed to do this like one at a time to show you like increasing coolness level, but I didn't. So notice that you can literally just do this too. So there. So you can drop this on as an actual parameter or a bound field as well. This is a calculated field. Now I'm going to show you something that maybe you did not know. So in order to do that, we're going to add a new parameter. And in the parameter, we're going to call it the unit price. Inside of unit price, I'm sorry, I put this down. I don't know why I did that. Inside of, since we're sticking with web, if that's okay, we're going to go to the default.aspx page. We're going to add another text box, and in that text box, we're going to put dollars. So let's say ASPX Let's see. Text box. Does the spin edit do numbers? I don't know. Is the spin edit a number thing? I wish Mehul were here. He is across the hall from me, but I don't know if the spin edit. What does the spin edit do? Is it like a number thing? Yes, it is indeed. Oh, look, he's coming over. Come on over, Mehul. I'm doing a webinar right now, and the question is, does the spin edit only take numbers in ASP.NET?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, he says yes. So we're going to use the spin edit control to actually get the parameter for the unit price, and when we click the button, what we're going to do is we're going to say the following. We're going to add I think it was unit price. So while you're here, Mehul, how do you get the number out of the unit price, out of the thing? I think it's spin edit, ASPX spin edit.
Yeah, I'll read out value.
So val, is it a number? Let's see. It says object, but I can just say decimal, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to do int or decimal. Okay. Okay. So let's make sure, first of all, that works by going over here to this thing, taking off the super field, and let's just bind to the unit price. And let's make sure that the unit price right here is set to, hold on, it has to be a decimal. Okay. So we have this parameter here, and we have this parameter here set up already. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're actually getting that parameter when we pass it back. So let's see that. Very good. So everything's set up. So let's run it and hit F5. I must be speaking loud enough that you can hear me through glass doors, Mehul. That could be good or bad. So we'll hit C and we'll put 15. For example, we'll hit ASPX button. Very good. So the parameter is coming into the report. And now for the cool part. Parameters can also participate in something called conditional formatting. That's right. Let's go over here and let's set that up. So let's go to this guy right here. And notice that there is something called formatting rules. I'm going to edit the rule sheet and add a new rule sheet. And this one's going to be called the unit price format. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to change the back color of this to black. We're going to change the font to Verdana again, leave it like that. The fore color is going to be white. Very good. And we'll leave everything else alone. The data member, again, is important. It's going to be category products. The data source is going to be Northwind because this is going to bound, this rule is for this data, okay? Now here's the cool part. We're going to go to the condition, and this condition has to return a Boolean. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to fields, and we're going to say the unit price is greater than or equal to, then go to parameters, and we're going to say parameters unit price and hit okali dokali. Now we're going to run it and see what happens. Now, let's go to C, and let's change this to 15, and let's hit the button, and uh-oh, something's wrong. Let's see if I can figure it out real quick. Notice that I created the formatting rule, but did not apply it to the control because I am seriously not very smart sometimes. So let's hit the play, and let's see if it works. Notice that to start, the value is going to be 0. Every time, right? And so notice that everything is going to be greater than 0. So as the report loads, you should see a bunch of black columns, right? But now let's go to 15, and let's do C. Let's hit this button here, and notice that. There you go. Let's do everything greater than $39. There you go. By the way, notice again that the changes that I made have to do pretty much just with the parameters and actually handling and using the parameters. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. For the other thing, devexpress.com/Seth. Let's see here. let me go down to the bottom and let's see. There is, it says winforms, but I'm going to change the tag to parameters and show you that there are a bunch of things about parameters set up here. So that filtering report data on the server, there's a blog post on that. And this is probably the one that you were looking for in the parameters. So notice that here I tell you how to actually change the value or how you access the value. Notice that it looks a little bit different here. So you can do that. I'll put this in the chat box so everyone can get that. So you see that also this affects the filter string inside of this editor, and I go through and show you how to do that. The key thing to remember is that there is this create repository item inside of this report design extension, right? And what it does is it lets you create any kind of editor that you want. Okay. The next thing that I want to show you is that we also have automatic built-in enum support. So the enums will automatically be able to do that. Notice that we have to add this, add those data types here, and the way to do that again is through the report extension. What we do is we add parameter types in the report design extension. I will post that also in the chat box so you have that as well. Okay, Amanda, it is roughly 10:58. We have 2 minutes. Any additional questions that you see?
Well, Andrew actually answered this on the back end. Juan was asking about other connections, database connections that can handle the management reporting, such as Oracle.
Oh, yes, great question. In fact, before I came to work for DevExpress, I worked at a very large shop, and in that shop we had direct connection to Oracle, and our reporting needs were handled through MVC and XtraReports. Definitely something you can do. A great question. Any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, so before we stop and call it a day, let's go ahead and make sure that everything's stopped. Again, the reminder of what we did. The first thing we did is we built a report, this guy right here. We added some parameters. We handled some of the parameters inside of ASP.NET, webforms, and also winforms. And then what we did is we actually were very careful about actually handling them ourselves through our own UI. And then what we did is we also handled the actual case of loading up data dynamically via parameters. Okay, so any questions now that we're almost about done?
Yeah, some have popped up. From Dan, can stored procedures be used instead of direct SQL statements?
Yes, the key here is that you need to tell the report the actual schema. So let's see, there is a property. Where is it? Oh, I'm looking at an XR label. There is a XML schema something here. Where is that? No, that's for the data path. But there's something for the schema that allows you to specify. There it is. The data source schema is an XML/XSD format of the report. So what you can do is you can create the schema for the report, and as long as the returning data table/data items from the stored procedure match the schema, it will bind properly. Good question. All right, any other questions?
Yep, from Brian. What about guidance for data-driven parameters?
Great question. So I don't necessarily see if let's see if I understand, because this could be either one of two things, and I'm guessing it's the latter. The former is, for example, notice how instead of saying category name, what if I want to have a drop-down box as the actual picker for the parameter value? EUD, yeah, end user report designer. Yes. Yes. So the answer is yes. And the question is, all you need to do is you need to look at this little blog post. Notice that it uses XPO in this case, but it actually doesn't matter. What you would do is handle the report design extension and do the binding in the create repository item. So yes. The other one, which is a little bit harder question, is can I dynamically create parameters based upon rows in the database? Yes, you can. You can definitely create your own parameters in code, and what you would do is you would just, let me go into the actual report itself. So report viewer, let's go to the code. Again, I'm just going to start typing here. Notice that you can add parameters.add. You can add any kind of parameter that you want, and it would be a new DevExpress parameter. You have a couple of things that you can do with that. By the way, it says my audio was kind of odd. Did you guys hear my stuff, what I was saying? If not, you can definitely see.
Yeah, you just got a fuzz. We can see and hear you, but you've got a fuzzy behind you now.
I just looked behind me, Amanda. I don't see anything. Are you talking like Cookie Monster fuzzy or? All right, so there's that. Okay, any other questions, Amanda?
Nope, we've covered all questions.
Oh, there's one more. Just saw it.
Oh.
If using data-driven parameters, would I need to create different parameters / viewer control for each report? No. There is a way. Now I need to find this because I saw this just the other day. So documentation parameter. There was something I saw that was simply, there is an event that happens in the report before the parameter control is shown that you can change it to be whatever you want. But I need to find it. So your own, okay. So we have X collection, parameters, data binding, calculated fields, scripting. By the way, notice that how I went and found everything that I had already done. So we did this, pass parameter, we did that. Here it is, provide a custom editor for the parameter. So this I think is in WinForms. I think maybe it might work in WPF, but I'd have to check because I know this is Brian asking this, but we'll have to look. But notice that we've changed the actual thing here to load up something else. Let's see. Yeah, notice that we've created our own lookup editor. And what we've done is info.parameter.name is for each parameter. We did that. We created a new parameter. Yeah, so take a look at this. This should help out. I will go ahead and send that off, and hopefully that helps. All right, Amanda. Looks like there are no more questions, so I will turn it back to you. But before I do, by the way, let me put up my interesting slide here. Yes. There you go. Back to you.
Great. All right, everybody. So we have a whole lineup of webinars that are posted, I believe, currently now through October. We have amazing guest presenters and, of course, DevExpress product training. So check them out and register at devexpress.com/webinars. And then later today at noon Pacific Standard Time, Code Rush feature workshop, Remove Outer Block with Mark Miller and Rory Becker. In this week's webinar, they'll create a plugin that removes the specified outer code block while preserving and promoting the children. And then tomorrow, Mastering ASP.NET Grid View, filtering, and multiple checkboxes. Learn how to add a multiple checkbox column to allow your end users to filter more powerfully. Also, we want your feedback. We always are looking to improve and want to target topics that our customers and the developer community are interested in. If you have feedback or suggestions on topics you'd like to see, please email me at webinars@devexpress.com. Those emails come directly to me, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, that said, if you missed anything from this webinar or you want to review any previous webinars or check out hundreds of online product tutorials, visit us on the DevExpress channel at tv.devexpress.com. Again, thanks so much to Seth. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for choosing DevExpress.